Hey, I'm Tim and this is Lucy and Indy, and today we're going to demonstrate how to build a pallet patio seat like this one. It's a fun and cheap way to add some funky furniture to your patio or deck. It doesn't require any specialized tools, parts, or expertise, so anyone can do it. And if you do have any questions, drop down into the comments below and let me know. I'll do my best to help you out. Enjoy. So like any project, the first step is to gather together the tools and materials that you're going to need. The essential things are a handsaw, a metal brush, a hammer, a Sharpie, a tape measure, some 80 grit sandpaper, some 1-inch and 2-inch construction screws, and a variety of ties from Home Depot. I used 4 2x4-inch fence brackets and some flat strong ties. Some personal protective equipment you'll need for this is a dust mask, some hearing protection, glasses, and gloves. Now, having some power tools on hand will make this project way easier, but they aren't necessarily essential. So if you don't already have these, don't worry, just watch the video and you'll still be able to do everything. You'll also need a clean working environment, and having some sawhorses or a surface to work on are always a good idea too. Next, you'll need to locate some pallets. A really important part of this project is finding high quality pallets for cheap or ideally free. I spent the morning searching online and I found a store not too far from here that's getting rid of some old pallets. We're gonna go check them out. It's important to make sure you find pallets that are heat treated, which will be indicated with a stamp like this, or maybe like this. Stay away from any colored pallets, as these have been treated with hazardous chemicals. The first place we checked out was giving away pallets. However, the ideal size for this project is 48 inches by 48 inches, and the pallets that they were giving away were 40 inches by 45 inches. That doesn't generally fit the sizes that outdoor cushions come in quite as well. So I grabbed a few just in case we couldn't find anything else, but we continued on to hopefully find some that were the right size. Next, we went to a store that was selling their old pallets for $1 each, so we really had to splurge for those. But they were heat treated, the wood was straight and in decent shape, and most importantly, they were the right size. You'll need a total of 2 pallets for each patio seat that you want to build.
So we were lucky because we were able to find 2 pallets that are exactly the same, and that's relatively important for this project. You want your pallet to be the same shape and size. These are 48 by 48 inches, and the configuration of the boards is the same on both of them. So the basic plan here is to cut this pallet in half this way. We're going to be making one cut here, and then these 2 will stack one on top of another to give you the height. This is a low bench, so if you want to make a higher bench, you have to find more pallets of the same shape and size, and the higher you stack it, the higher it is. And then with this other pallet, we're going to be making the back part of the bench, so because the pallets are exactly the same, we know the supporting boards will line right up, and we'll use those to attach the back of the bench.
As we're going to be mounting the headboard at a slight angle, we don't want to cut the pallet exactly in half. Instead, measure from one side and make 2 marks, one at 25 inches and the other at 26 inches. Now use a straight edge to make square lines from each mark. Mark an additional diagonal like so. Cut along the straight line that the top of the diagonal line connects to. Make identical cuts to the one you just did to all the other supporting boards of the pallet. This will cut the pallet cleanly in half. Now cut the diagonals that you marked and make identical diagonal cuts to the rest of the supporting boards. The easiest way to do this is to measure in 22 inches, and that's if you're using the same size pallets that I am, 48 inches by 48 inches, and then connect that mark to the bottom of the supporting boards. Now all pallets will be slightly different, and I found that once I cut this one in half, the bottom of the half that's going to be the bench of the seat only had one board on it, which is problematic because it'll prevent it from sitting level when it's secured to the bottom of the seat. To fix this, I knocked a board off the other pallet, the one I'm intending to use for the headboard, and I just put it in place using the nails that were already in it. Next, we're going to prepare the wood. Start by brushing away any rough wood, dirt, or splinters off with the metal brush, and then sand it with the 80 grit sandpaper. This is a step where you can really spend as much or as little time as you like, but I recommend sanding it at least to the point that it won't give you splinters. This is definitely the most time-consuming step of this project, so if you can, I recommend you recruit some help. I passed the sanding off to Lucy and Indy, and meanwhile I started preparing the headboard. So we just finished sanding the top of the bench. As you can see, there's a big crack right in the front of it here. The wood that we got is a little older. It's been sitting outside for a little while, so it's kind of cracked up and a bit more splintery than newer wood would be. An optional step, but I would say recommended, especially in this case, is to fill any big cracks like this with wood filler. So right here, I have some wood filler and a putty knife, and I'm basically just gonna fill in this crack with the filler and we'll sand it down after it dries. I did my best to pick filler that would match the color of the wood pretty well, but I actually found on a previous project when I finished the wood with just a colorless finisher, the filler was pretty obvious. So in this case, we're gonna be staining the wood a dark color, and I'm not as worried about how the filler is gonna look afterwards. Before you can actually sand the filler down, you have to wait 20 or 30 minutes until it's dry. While that happens, I'm just going to give you an overview of what the next step is. So I have the base here with the angles cut into the middle pieces of wood, and I have what's going to become the headboard here, which is just another pallet that I knocked all the wood off the bottom because it's not needed, and also on the back. I did leave one piece on the back just for structure, but I took all the other pieces off. So this is going to get mounted basically like that. We're pretty lucky that we found pallets which were identical, so the middle pieces of wood match up perfectly. If your pallets don't, you might have to improvise this next step a little bit. Once you've knocked the pieces of wood off the headboard that you aren't going to need, you can brush and sand the boards that you've left on. You can then cut the supporting boards to length depending on how high you want the headboard to go. Stack the bench, the half of the pallet with the diagonals on it, on top of the bottom pallet and fasten them together by shooting some screws through the stacked boards. I found 2-inch screws at an angle, held the boards together without sticking out the back. But if your wood is thicker or smaller, then you might need to use different size screws accordingly. Once that's done, you can attach the fence brackets to the diagonals that you cut earlier, like so, and then set the headboard in place and screw it in too. Add additional flat ties as necessary to ensure that the headboard is secure and will support weight. Alright, so we've got our pallet patio seat to the point that the last step remaining is basically to stain it. And again, this is an optional step. You can do it if you want to. If you want to just call it done at this point, that's fine too. You'll notice looking at this, up here it looks a little uneven. That's because the pellet itself that we found was in fact a little uneven, and the top of this board here, as you can see, is broken, and it's also misaligned. but you know, you're gonna be able to sit on it no matter how it looks. So come over to the back, I'll show you what the structural support on the back looks like. In terms of the structural support holding the headboard onto the bench itself, I used a variety of strong ties from Home Depot, as mentioned earlier in this video under the materials section. You can see it doesn't look super pretty. These screws are going in at a variety of angles, and that's intentional. I did that so that the wood wouldn't split quite as much. What really matters in terms of the structural support of this is that the headboard isn't going to come off when people are sitting on it. That to me is a lot more important than how it looks. That being said though, you could definitely implement your own design for holding the headboard in place. You could probably come up with something that takes a lot longer to do but looks a little better, so that's your call.
The whole bench is pretty much finished except for the staining, which is my favorite part. We got this stain at the local hardware store. As you can see, it's already been used. Make sure you get an exterior stain so it's weatherproof and not an interior furniture stain. We picked the dark walnut color. You can still see the grain of the wood through the color, but it gives it a more uniform finish. But pick whatever color you like, and you can even go with a clear finish if you really like the grain of your wood.
Hey everyone, we really hope you enjoyed this video and that it helped you build your own pallet patio seat. If you did like it, make sure you subscribe to my channel and check me out on Facebook and Instagram because I'm going to have more videos like this coming out soon. Thanks for watching.